But I believe that that's going to be the key ingredient, was when we get to heaven, I want to make sure that the main thing is the main thing. What am I investing into? Did you learn how to love? To truly love. You see, that this is what I believe that John is talking about with Hebrews. As we were gathering together, we're actually meant to be stirring up one another into love and good deeds. As I was beginning to pray today, I was just like, I had a different thought of a place that I wanted to go with regards to sharing this, and I feel like I'm having to even rehash some of this information and everything like that. I'm like, this is not going to be perfect, but I'm like, God, if you're speaking on a word, this is what I want to go after. If you're speaking a now word, I refuse to put in my own ideas and think that that's better than your ideas. And I believe that God is stirring us to a place to love deeper and to be loved by Him. Let's just read this one more time in Ephesians 3:17 to 20. It says that so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. This is 3:17 to 20. I'm going to pray that you, being rooted and established in love, that may have the power, together with all God's holy people, to grasp how wide, how long, how high, how deep the love of Christ is, and to know that this love surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. Now Him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we can ask or imagine, according to His power and work within us. This is the key to actually accessing the infinite resources of God that heaven has for us. Whatever you can imagine. How many believe that you've got some pretty big imaginations? He says I can do more. He says exceedingly, abundantly, far greater. There's 4 adjectives there. He doesn't say I can do much more. I thought even if you could say, God, you could do what I imagine, that would be huge. But He doesn't say, I can just do what you imagine. I said, I could do more, exceedingly, abundantly, far greater than you could ask for or imagine. But before that, it says that you will be filled to the measure of some of the fullness of God. That you may be filled with the measure of most of the fullness of God. It actually says to be filled with the fullness of all. To be filled with the measure of all the fullness of God. How many are blown away by that? Man, maybe you just got to read it about 20 more times until it's less like, what? We're talking about God Himself. All the fullness of God that we have access to. And the door is actually to receive power. It says that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, and I pray that you, being rooted and established in love. I was always taught that it was being rooted and established in the Word, but here it actually says in the Word that we're being rooted and established in love. The Word is very important, sharper than any two-edged sword, but we're actually meant to be rooted and grounded in love. That when the things of life try to come against us, that we're rooted in that place. You see, love is not just a fuzzy feeling that we feel on a Sunday during the worship. It actually changes us from the inside out. And this is what Paul says, that you would all have this experience, as all the saints would have. How high, how wide, how deep is the love of God. He actually the love of God, according to Paul, has 4 dimensions. Not just 3 dimensions, but 4 dimensions. How wide, how long, how high, and how deep the love of God is, and to know that this love surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. That the experiential revelation of that, it says in the Amplified 3 or 4 times, that you would actually experience it firsthand. You know, we went to Atlanta a few years ago, and we had a small prayer meeting. There was probably about 12 or 14 people, and we're just laying hands on people. It wasn't wild. It was pretty tame. You know, we're just laying hands on people. There was no manifestations or anything like that up until that point. Then we laid hands on a guy called Eli, and he went under the power, laid on the floor, and began to he was shaking vigorously and like moaning and screaming and all this kinds of stuff. Like it was really different than what was actually happening in the room. We just kind of left it there. We continued to just pray for different people around the area, and he was on the floor, and he's just just crying like that, and you know, we were like, I wonder what's going on there. And I remember Brett was with me, and you know, after 45 minutes, he was just just going on like that for ages. And you know, this is the thing about discernment. We need to be very careful to not jump to conclusions when it comes to manifestations. And I remember I was thinking, well, this kind of actually looks a little bit demonic, to be honest. I don't know. It just looks a bit rough. It looks a bit, you know, on the floor. I don't know what's going on here. And so I just whispered in Brett's ear, and I said, hey, you know, why don't you just ask him what's going on? And he's just, and Brett goes, you know, what's going on, man? What's happening? And he goes, I see God. I see God on the throne. And then he's just crying. I'm saving your ears. He's crying. He's just going nuts. And he goes, we go, wow. He's seeing God, and it just brought a revelation to what God was doing there. Obviously, it's like, well, this is clearly not demonic. You know, that's the thing. You know, when you're in the presence of God, there's three different kinds of manifestations you can have. It can be from God, it can be in the flesh, and it can be of the devil. If it's from God, we want it. If it's from the devil, it's probably good because those things are coming out in the glory. If it's the flesh, we can deal with that. You know, we can begin to walk people through that. You know, I think Bill Johnson was the one that says that most churches, people choose their churches based on the acceptable form of the flesh. So you can have somebody that's vibrating on the front that's doing it in the flesh, and you can have somebody in the pews just sitting nice and quiet, and that's of the flesh as well. Are you with me? So he's here, and he's just like, God spoke to me. And we're like, yeah, wow, that's awesome, bro. What did he tell you? It's obviously massively impacting. I'm like, is he seeing the return of Christ? Is it going to be a revelation that's going to unlock things for nations? Is he, you know, what is it? And he says, bro, just tell us. And he goes, God just said to me, what did he say? Because he said, I love you, my son. He just kept on crying. So was that it? You know that already, don't you? It totally rocked him to his core. It was the only thing that God said to him. It was so multilateral, it went straight through his being. He said, I love you, son. And he didn't just get it up here because he'd heard it. This is a missionary's kid. He's been a Christian most of his life. But when God spoke to him, something happened in his spirit that just completely changed. God said that he loved me. I believe that was what Paul is talking about, that we would actually experience, that we would not just have a revelation knowledge. That, you know, I believe we were on youth camp and we were sharing these different things, and we have youth pastors coming up and saying, how could you share about the love of God? You know, these are people that are you know, that they've been saved for this long. You know, obviously this is 101, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. I knew those scriptures backwards and forwards until I was 27. I remember even having a conversation with my parents, and they said, well, you know, we're setting up these new Christians classes, and I believe that I'd had encounters in God's love and everything like that. And he said, you know, and they were saying, well, the teaching on the Father's heart and everything like that, you need to be able to do that. And I've got to say, well, what's the big deal about that? Let's share about, you know, how to operate in signs and wonders and miracles and all that kind of fun stuff. Then when I was 26 years old, things began to change for me, and I began to encounter, it felt like for the first time in my life, it just totally destroyed me. I encountered something. I had to go through every single scripture in the Bible to reread. This is about love. This is about love. I reread that passage of Ephesians 3:18. It's like, God, what is happening in my heart is not making sense up here. He was changing me from the inside out. And I believe that today that God, when I was just praying before, that God is basically, he's wanting to say the same thing here as to what he said to Eli. The same thing that he said to Eli is, I love you. I love you. Do you know you're absolutely worth it? You are worth the whole world. It's not you know, your value is based on what people are willing to pay. If you have a house, you know, where we're looking at different cars and everything like that, the sale of a house or real estate is based on what people are willing to pay. Your life was worth heaven's most valuable resource. The blood, the precious blood of Jesus that was spilt for you.